saying poor connection. I hope you can still hear me. Hey, you guys. Nice to see you again. This is Richard Sachs. I'm your host on Lost Arts Radio. It's amazing that it's that far into the year already, but July 20th, 2019. And I think on some of the channels, some of the platforms, we were temporarily disappeared for a week or two. And I thought, wow, I should think of something totally non-controversial that no one could ever not like or object to, or our rulers think was too outside the box or anything. So trying to make the mic hold together here for a minute. So I thought, well, what could that possibly be, since people can take an exception with so many different things? And I thought, I know, let's start with a cartoon but there was a great cartoon by him that I'll try to recreate for you in description. And for those of you that don't know, he's a famous cartoon artist. He wrote a cartoon column called The Far Side for a long time. I don't know if it's still existing anywhere, but they actually had a whole wall dedicated to him at the Steinhardt Aquarium in San Francisco back when it was a lot nicer place to visit, the city, I mean, and a lot safer and more friendly, etc. And there's one cartoon that I remember that really stood out to me. It was a big field of grazing cows. And, you know, Gary Larson was famous for educating us about what cows really do when no one's around and they don't know. And they're having these classes. It's amazing. I mean, you should get a hold of one of his books of cartoons if you can, because I haven't seen this information anywhere else. And with a blackboard in a classroom situation, explaining different trigonometric equations and calculus and things like that. And then they'd go around, when the farmer got up in the morning, they'd go back to being what they thought the farmer would like to see, which is normal cows walking around the field and eating grass and making one particular sound all the time, and that was it. But that's not the cartoon I'm thinking of. It was a big field of grazing cows peacefully eating grass out in the field, and some of the cows are starting to move toward the center of the field where this big truck is parked inside the fence that drove in through the gate, you know. And the back of the truck is wide open, so cows can walk in, and it's got a ramp from the ground, down from the grass up to the back of the truck so they can walk in, and there's some good food inside. Alfalfa or grain or something that cows really like. And I guess there's a good smell coming out of the truck from the incredible food. So they're all being attracted to that, and they kind of casually walking over. And so the cows start walking up the ramp. I guess it's a heavy-duty wood ramp. Cows are pretty heavy, you know, big ones anyway. And they would break a regular piece of plywood or something. So there's this heavy-duty reinforced cow ramp going up to the back of the truck, and they're just happily talking to each other and walking up the ramp, except for one cow. And that cow's running around the field, around the ramp from one side to the other and around the truck. And she was pleading with the other cows on the ramp and saying, no, you don't understand. You have to turn around immediately. And the cows on the ramp were paying no attention at all. And they just kept walking casually up the ramp, chatting with each other. And one of them, Gary shows on the ramp, is saying, can you believe that Bossy Belle, or whatever her name is, she can't just relax and enjoy the sunlight and come up the ramp with us? Everybody's on the ramp. Why would anyone not go on it? I always knew she was a little bit strange, but now she's totally off her rocker, wandering off by herself away from the herd. And now we can see what's really wrong with her. She's a crazy conspiracy theorist. I haven't met one before her. And inside the cab of the truck in the front was a man, just one man sitting, I guess, reading a newspaper or something. This was written back when they still had newspapers, you know, in print form. I know there's some now, but not like they used to, delivering them on your driveway and everything. So this guy's sitting in the driver's seat with the engine running, reading the newspaper, waiting for all the cows to get in the truck. And on the side of the truck is this big red letters in kind of calligraphy, fancy writing. And it says, in kind of a cheerful layout, Bob's Slaughterhouse. And that's the cartoon, is just to kind of put that in context of everything. Not that it relates to the world or anything, but just another story about cows. And so as humans, reading the cartoon, we'd probably just want to laugh at the cows being so dumb and think, these dumb cows, they can't even reason and read like us humans can. And so they walk right into the trap, and then they just get driven away and get killed. We would never do that. And it shows humans are the most intelligent species on the earth, or at least they think they are. And so while thinking that, all of us super intelligent members of the species here, we're just walking up the ramp. And just a little bit different kind of ramp and a little bit different field, but same sort of situation. And, I'm not going to be negative with this broadcast at all. I'm just noting what's going on in the field around us and the ramps that we're walking up, as there are several. But before I get too far into it, I should remind you that remember to go to lostartsradio.com, just in case by any chance we should disappear again, or for longer or permanently, which is, the idea that that's probably going to happen. So keep in touch with us at lostartsradio.com, where you can also sign up on our mailing list. It's not really being used for anything right now. We don't have that kind of a newsletter going out, but if we've got a name and an email address, if we have to stay in touch with you and we're not able to broadcast on regular platforms or even put up podcasts or anything, then we can send you news of what's going on and where we're able to be heard on the mailing list. So go there before you forget, lostartsradio.com. It's pretty easy to find where the mailing list sign up is. Also, you can keep in touch with us at Brighteon, of course, BRIGHTEON.com. It's a new site that's just been put up as an alternative video site that is not censoring. And it's run by Mike. I can't say his last name because we'll get banned right away. He's totally unacceptable to the major platforms, but he's done an incredible job of setting up this early stage platform. And we, strongly encourage people to post there and get an account there. And soon you'll be able to subscribe to channels like ours or other ones. And it's just a really good project. So support at Brighteon.com. But now back to the thing we were talking about. There's more than 7 billion people on the planet right now, according to the estimates that we've got, and more than the cows in that particular cartoon field. And so the slaughtering that's going on is a big job, and it's already started. And it's not just the humans, it's all the species on the planet. I don't know if you've noticed, but I noticed this last spring that a place where I was helping to grow food, everything looked the same, but the bees disappeared. And I think someone killed the hive of the bees that were coming to that garden every year because they weren't there. Several of the trees had no fruit as a result. Some trees are more dependent on bees, particularly. Bees are really important for the survival of humanity, though, in general. And all the species like that are under attack. Many have already gone extinct. So the ramp into the slaughter truck is real, even though it looks superficially normal on the outside. That's really happening, and Gary's cartoon was quite appropriate. And of course, if you're talking about being efficient, the technology exists to kill everybody right now, and that would be quick. I mean, it could be done within an hour or less. And wouldn't that be more efficient? Obviously, yes. So we know it's being done slowly and methodically for a reason. That's not just by chance. In fact, really, the deeper you get into investigating things, I don't even believe in chance anymore. I don't think anything just happens at random. We also know something else, that those doing the killing project don't intend to survive the project, the slaughter project, physically themselves. And I bring that up because good friends of mine who are leaders on various platforms and shows and things like that are saying, yeah, it's going to be like the Georgia Guidestones, and population of the world is going to be brought down to 500 million or less. And, they just kind of go on from there, 95% reduction, and Alex, sometimes 98, 99% is admitted to the top level rulers. But from what I can see, it's clearly 100%, because the kind of changes that they're making in the biosphere around us, that we were talking about, the things they're doing to destroy the entire environment and all the species in it, all the life on Earth, that those kind of changes are not revocable by any normal means, that they're making the irreversible kind. And so I think it follows that the top level controllers believe that they'll be able to merge into cyberspace and live forever based on other information that we've got, and be there worshiping and merging with their dark god. They're Satanists. I think you may have heard of that. And they're not doing this for money and power. Money and power are being used to motivate those who are working for them on the lower levels. But at the top level, it really has nothing to do with money. And as far as power, the end goal is not power over the people of the world, because those are targeted for termination, as they said in the movie. And the rulers figure they won't need their physical bodies anymore once they don't need physical life and they merge into cyberspace. And that is like the ultimate end of transhumanism. The transhumanism is, there's one transhumanism for them and one transhumanism for everybody else. And for everybody else, they want us to gradually become part machine and part human until we're eliminated. But for the top level, they intend to become completely cybernetic and not living in the normal sense. They believe that that's the gateway to immortality. It's kind of a mistake. It's not going to turn out the way they think, but they're really making a big mess as a result. And it's pretty much up to us, not waiting for anybody else, but to change that situation in the best way that we can. Clearly, it's not just population reduction, it's step-by-step total extermination. And in detail, what it really is a ritual sacrifice, according to the doctrine of sacrifice that appears in many scriptures. And a basic idea is that if you kill an innocent being, the more innocent the better, animal, person, higher being, whatever you can kill, that if you do it exactly according to directions from God, then God is going to be extremely happy with you, and you'll get all kinds of spiritual benefit. So that our rulers on earth, they're saying, that sounds like a really good doctrine. I think it makes a lot of sense. And how could we take the most advantage of it? What's the best sacrifice, ritual sacrifice, that we could do exactly the right way to please God and get where we want to go, which is to merge into the God that we're worshiping, which is the dark one that you've heard about under various names. And they said, okay, I know. Kill the whole biosphere, kill all the life on the planet. That's got to get a lot of spiritual benefit, and that's exactly what they're involved in. And you can tell it's not just population reduction. It's not just trying to get us out of the way so they can have the world. Those are intermediate steps, but where it's going is clearly extermination. So to do it right, they have to send out notices in various forms about what they're about to do, which they've been doing from the beginning. And it comes out in entertainment, it comes out in news, it comes out in white papers, it comes out in books they've written, like Um, I mean, there are so many. I'll give you some examples later on, but in they do it in ways that I was thinking, like, tragedy and hope, but there are a lot of others, and they do it in ways that they figure we're too dumb to figure out, and they think it's kind of humorous as they move along the steps. So we're watching the death of life on our planet, mostly unaware that we're the ones that could stop it. I think it's still reversible. Some people, there's some famous geoengineers, for example, one that I'm thinking of, that thinks it's definitely too late and there's nothing you can do. And he basically tells his followers that forget it. There are no countermeasures that would work anymore. So just, appreciate the little bit of life you have left. So then there are some, then the same transhumanists, the same AI people that our current rulers believe is their salvation, is designed to destroy us, which is kind of convenient because they get their own end goal and they get us out of the way at the same time, and they can complete the ritual sacrifice exactly according to specifications. Even the new AI, the non-AI technology is designed to destroy all of us. And how many examples of that can you see all around you? AI is not in full swing in most of the technology now, but it's still designed specifically to eliminate as many or all of us as it can by steps. So what examples are the most obvious that you can see all around you? Because we've talked about it before, that the frequencies that are designed into Wi-Fi that Barry Trower and other experts talked about are designed to interfere with the normal electrical communication between cells in your body. And you've got, 50, 100 trillion cells in your body, depending on what science source you look at. And they all communicate with each other constantly, nonstop, with very fine electrical communications. It's called intercellular communication. And the intracellular actually works on a similar system, and it's very, very fine current. If you stopped all the electrical communications in your body, that would be the end of your body. I mean, it couldn't function. So it's designed for that, not just the 5G, but the Wi-Fi, the cell phone radiation, all that. And at the same time to interfere with the particular frequency and vibratory rate of water molecules, and later with the 5G, that will be targeting oxygen molecules. So it's not really very friendly. And we're all being trained at the same time to rely completely on the technology. Like the smartphones are a great example. It's getting harder to pay bills without having a smartphone, at least online or over the phone. And I know I was making a phone call to some credit card recently, and if you're not on your smartphone, they'll make believe they don't recognize you and put you through all these verification procedures and put you on hold and just make it subtly and obviously more difficult, more time consuming, to give everybody the incentive to go over to complete functioning with smartphones, even using smartphones to swipe over credit card purchases, and gradually getting rid of cash too. And getting rid of cash is something we really don't want them to do, because I'm sure you've heard of it. The cashless society is being sold for convenience, and just like fast junk food is convenient, except junk food is not as immediately dangerous as a cashless society. Because if you're in a cashless society, which starts with credit cards, but it goes to chips eventually, and then potentially brain implants, which Alex and others have been predicting for decades and warning people against, and now they're starting. We'll talk about those a little bit later on, try to get through the material that we've got here. So we're all being trained to rely on smartphones and to have a harder and harder time of doing without them. And they rely on wireless radiation, which they're sending and receiving all the time. They're transmitting frequencies that harm the user. That's you, by the way. And every time I go in a gym, sometimes to do aspects of working out that I can't do outside the gym too easily. It's amazing. All the gyms are, like so many other businesses, are switching over to 100% Wi-Fi everything, cashless operation. They don't have change on hand. They don't have any cash. They only take cash. A lot of the gym chains are going in that direction, and everything's wireless. They got, and one that I was in, I think 15 televisions around the end, all completely wireless, and they are pushing or promoting this thing that you wear on your wrist called, I forget the exact name of it. It's probably connected to that gym chain, and it tells you, constantly monitors your heart rate and your respiration rate and how hard you're working and your percent of maximum heart rate and things like that. Of course, to do this, it's putting out, radiating a signal all the time, which undoubtedly is going to be found to be carcinogenic, and it's being promoted as fast as possible. So the deal is learn from that. And it's amazing. I thought it was old knowledge that everybody had, but if you have to use a so-called smartphone, then don't ever hold it on your body. Don't hold it on your head when you're making a phone call or somebody calls you. Don't carry it on your body when it's turned on at all. I know in the gym that I was talking about, women are putting them in their bras and in their waistbands, and men are putting them in their pockets. It's really not intelligent to do that. It's not that these are unintelligent people. They just trust authority. And they've been trained to think that government has already checked out everything. And if government's allowing it to be sold, then it has to be safe. I mean, we've got FDA and CDC and a million other agencies. Of course, somebody's going to say, fact check, Richard, there's not a million agencies. There's only 1,000 big ones or something. Oh, sorry about that. But if the agencies say it's safe, then it must be great to use. And that's not exactly accurate, as anybody who's checked into it has found out. So you can't convince people to not constantly hold their phone on their head, most people anyway, to make phone calls. But anybody that's receptive, you can be an example. And if they ask you, tell them why, that it's actually transmitting radiation. And in the fine print of the brochures that come with the phone, it actually tells you, hold it away from your head when you're talking, but they only say, a 1/4 inch or something like that. And in reality, it shouldn't be touching your hand. It shouldn't be touching your body. It shouldn't be anywhere around you. And if you have to use it, what I do, because I have one that I use for videos and emergency phone calls and things, I try not to touch it when it's on any more than necessary. And if you have to use it, just set it down on a counter or something and put it on speakerphone, because most of them have really efficient speakerphones at this point. Or if you can't do that, if you're in an environment that it would bother other people, like in the middle of a gym, then they have these air tubes that don't have metal in the connectors that go up into your ear. And those are probably the next choice if you can't use a speaker. And it's the same reason you want to get Wi-Fi out of your house. Your programmed mind is going to say, but it's so convenient. I can walk over there and download movies, and I don't even have to be connected to an Ethernet cable. And the thing is, convenience and immediate attraction can be very dangerous. You have to look at what you get and what the cost is. It's like if a trout gets caught by a salmon egg because it thinks it's so great and it's being drifted right into my mouth, and this is incredible. I don't even have to go hunt for a bug for 5 minutes. And then the trout dies, and it's like the cow walking up into the ramp of the slaughterhouse truck. Same kind of analogy, and we're doing exactly the same thing. So it does take a little bit of inconvenience, a little bit of studying, doing your homework to find out what are all the hazards around you, not to feel bad or worried or depressed or despairing about it at all. That's not required. You don't have to tune yourself into any of those negative emotions. You just have to find out. That requires intellect and strategic analysis, things like that. So it's a reason to get rid of the Wi-Fi. And if it's in your house, have the company put in Ethernet cables into the house. This is just my suggestion. I can't tell you what to do, but if it was me and I had Wi-Fi, I'd get it out within the next 5 minutes, if not sooner. And where some routers have wireless options to go from the incoming cable to various locations in the house, or they have an option for a hardwired cable connection, and that's the one you should use. But if you can get a modem that doesn't have a Wi-Fi option at all, that's best, because it's really tempting to use it occasionally and then more and more for convenience, and it's a really bad idea to do that. So get the Wi-Fi out of your house. Try, if you have an option to get it out of your office, that would be great too, although that may not be in your control. And definitely, without question, get it out of your kids' school, get it out of your church. Some of the churches are making money from the telecom companies and not even telling their members. And they put up, I live near one that has this big cell tower disguised as a street light. If you look at it carefully, it doesn't look like a normal street light, but if you just glance at it, that's what you think it is. It's got the same kind of metal post, and there's just no light on the top. It's just a covered end to it with steel. And that's where they radiate all their church members and all their employees with really high EMF of the kind that creates cancer clusters around those towers. And they're trying to put them everywhere now. It's not just for money, but the telecom companies that are doing it, for them, it's just for money. And they don't care what happens to anybody. And they tell themselves, I've talked to a lot of them, and they tell themselves, well, government has approved it, so it must be fine. And I need to stop talking now and get back to business so we can make more money and put more cell towers on schools and churches and meeting places and wherever people congregate, because they'll have faster connectivity. What they don't tell you is that the connectivity is not as fast as fiber optic, not as fast as a hard connection. It's a lot less reliable. It's more likely to get cut off in the middle of a conversation. There's really nothing good about being on Wi-Fi that I can think of anyway, except that you can walk over where there's no wires and still use your device. But, you know, how big of a payoff is that if you're going to get cancer? Doesn't seem like a very good trade. To quote Kevin Costner in one of the movies he wrote, it's a really bad trade. So stay away from Wi-Fi if you possibly can. And as the 5G gets put in, we had a really good guest on our show on the Sunday archives. You can find it, Lost Arts Radio. It was representative from Scientists for Wired Technology. That's a good site to go to start studying some of the backup and documentation of the stuff that I'm quickly mentioning. Scientists, plural, for wired technology. And it's a descriptive name. It means use wired technology, don't use Wi-Fi, don't use 5G, don't allow 5G in your town. If, like where I live, the city council members are total zombies and they're just real cheerful and they'll pass anything that helps get us into Agenda 21 faster or things like that. They were telling me when I actually took time to go to a meeting in our town to talk about why 5G should never be allowed in our town or any other town. And I met some of the so-called representatives who only represent themselves and their sponsors, of course, on the way in. And I was saying, yeah, I want to talk about 5G and Wi-Fi in general. And they say, oh, are you supporting it? And like all of us are. And I said, no, I really think it's a bad idea to let it into the city. And they said, oh, this is a conspiracy theorist idiot. You know, we want to direct him to the wrong room or anything we can get to, you know, avoid having him talk. And it was amazing. And they were real cheerful saying, yeah, it's already government approved. And besides, everything's great because we have no choice. The government already said nobody can complain about the health effects about the 5G coming into the town. And if you go to Scientists for Wired Technology, you'll find out that's a oversimplification. It's not exactly true. There are still ways to prevent it from getting into your town. And even though you have to deal with these completely out to lunch representatives most of the time, there are things you can do to get in the way of the installation, and it's worth it. If not for yourself, which it should be for yourself too, but certainly for all the children in the town and the people who don't know that it's something that has great malice behind it, and a bunch of highly educated scientists that have no idea that they're defending something that's going to hurt people. So, as I said, what they don't tell you is not only is fiber optic faster and much more reliable and way better in every way, it has no harmful effects on the body at all. It's also installed in most of America and who knows where else already. And I notice that they always forget to mention that because they want you to think that Wi-Fi is the way to save the world, along with all their other programs. And it's already installed in a lot of places, and it can just be extended. And if it's not installed, it can be installed. It costs more money than just putting satellites up in the air to blast every square inch of Earth with EMF frequencies for Wi-Fi, but it's a lot smarter to do it in a way that won't kill you. Not that EMF technologies are the only ones that were designed to hurt people, but they're one of the big ones that's really being promoted right now. And we'll mention in a few minutes here about SpaceX, the company of Elon Musk, one of his many companies that is sending satellites up into orbit with the idea that they can pretty much radiate every square inch of Earth with available Wi-Fi, even out in the ocean and everything else. This is a really horrible assault on humanity. And there's still people who think that Elon Musk is a really benevolent person, because I guess he did go on the internet and warn everybody that AI is what he thought was the biggest threat to the future of life on Earth, humans and other forms. But now he's acting completely different, like he's hypnotized or something. And he's saying, you have to get this latest thing that one of his other companies is providing. It's as or more threatening and dangerous than Wi-Fi, and I'll tell you about it in a minute. So I would say that the whole power structure, the business plan of these people that intend to destroy life on Earth is very brilliant. And at the top level, they know what it's about, that it's to harm and kill and enslave and eventually destroy all life on Earth. But that's not safe for them to tell all the levels of people that are working for them. The lower level servants, they have to believe that it's all cutting edge science and it's really going to help the world so much and it's going to make everybody's life better. And they're being taught in the educational system and by the media, all the media personalities reading off teleprompters there as if they knew what they're talking about, which most of them have no idea. So they tell us all kinds of things. Not only is Wi-Fi good and 5G is going to be wonderful, and it's because they always say it's responding to public demand. It's because the demand for so much more internet speed is just overwhelming, and they're having a lot of connection failures and things that will all be solved by 5G. It's going to be wonderful. But that's in parallel with the rollout of so many other ongoing programs to do the same thing. For example, the medical personnel, medical authorities are they all believe and they tell us that toxic chemicals, drugs are toxic chemicals, and they tell us that those are medicine. They're trained to think that that's actually true, and then they write medicine on it, so it has to be true. And it's just like a sci-fi movie that anybody actually believes in that. And there's a doctor that's been on our Sunday show many times, Rima Labo, and she explains that she knows people inside the drug companies, one in particular that was a drug developer. And what they do is they develop what's called candidate chemicals first. And they do experiments to show whether they can cover up a certain symptom. Like, for example, if you have what's defined as high blood pressure, which is just an arbitrary number that they decided that it shouldn't be above that number. It's been lowered recently to somewhere around, I think 100 even on the systolic pressure, but something like that. Anyway, they define it and then they look for a drug that, a chemical actually, that they can give to animals, that they give artificially high blood pressure by doing hideous things to the animals. It's not safe to be born as a lab rat in this particular time, and or anything else, pretty much. But if it makes the blood pressure go down, then they can submit it. These chemists that are working on that can submit it to the heads of the company and say, look, this could be a great drug for you to promote and to get approval on from FDA for use on humans. And this one guy, a friend of Rima's that was working for the drug company development department like that, coming up with candidate chemicals, he was getting ready to retire, and he told his bosses, you know, I've been trying to do a really good job at this candidate chemical search, and you guys aren't using any of my candidate chemicals for drugs. What's wrong with the one I'm trying to give you, you know, really good ones every time? Why don't you accept them? And they kind of laughed and said, don't you understand the system? We don't accept any candidate chemicals for drugs without a suitable side effect profile. In other words, they have to hurt you in enough ways that it's going to help the industry, or else they're not interested in making them into a drug. So if you absorb what that means, if you didn't already know, that should be a pretty big deal for you to understand that. And other authority figures are telling us similarly that chemical fertilizer, these are just some of the examples of what they're telling us to believe. Chemical fertilizers are necessary to feed the world. We've heard that for decades, since the Green Revolution and before. Wi-Fi and 5G and smartphones are all safe. Nuclear power is clean technology. I just have a few here. There's hundreds. Solar and wind are the most advanced alternative energy. You know, and they say that in the people that are pushing the Green New Deal, including friends of mine that are really doing great work in other areas, but are seriously misguided when they're supporting something as horrible as the Green New Deal. Because even though, you know, they like the Green New Deal because it talks about solving environmental issues, which is a really good idea. And yet they say things like solar and wind are the most advanced alternative clean energy, and they support things that have organic provisions in them like the Green New Deal, even though they would put all healthcare in the hands of the government, which is the end of health freedom permanently. Everybody'd have to be forcibly injected, not just the kids going to school in California and New York, but everybody. There are hundreds of shots being gotten ready to be made mandatory for you as an adult, and they want you to run to get those right away. The Green New Deal would put that completely in the hands of the federal government, as well as everything about healthcare, not just vaccines. And they'd also borrow so much money from the so-called Federal Reserve, which is like this giant leech sitting on top of the economy, making it impossible for long-term economic solutions to even happen. They would put the country suddenly 100% into the hands of the Federal Reserve, which is where they borrow the money to implement programs that would never be practical to afford, and having no idea that that's going on. They're just supporting it because it's environmental, you know, the Green New Deal, and they don't understand the parts of it that aren't talking about agriculture that are fatal and suicidal for the country. So hopefully that will never happen. But even the other parties in Congress are writing up their own modified Green New Deal alternatives to show that they're really caring about the environment and all this stuff. It's not good. Anyway, the authorities figures are telling us that we have to give up all our rights to solve the climate change issues, which are going to kill us now in officially 11 or 11 and a half years. Everybody's going to be dead if they don't start having massive taxes and collecting money to apologize for the horrible carbon emissions that come in your breath and into the environment every time you breathe out and fertilize the plants. It's a horrible thing. And they tell us that sovereign countries are the cause of war, and that we need world government to have peace and prosperity, and especially what they call justice, which is a code name for their various programs. And they tell us that our rulers have to define hate speech for us to save us from anything that might hurt anybody's feeling and protect us from ever even seeing or hearing whatever they define as hate speech. So lately, with the big censorship campaign that's being rolling out on the internet and in the regular media, they just define anything unacceptable to the government or the corporations as hate speech, so that the governments can protect us. And it's pretty overwhelming. They're telling us that sterility and drugs are the way to health and much more. So each level of workers within the system is given a different vision of reality and values to hold on to for security and motivation and to help do their job. For example, there's a huge program running right now to get rid of all sovereign countries, anybody that has their own country, America or any other country in the world. And they're wanting to tear them down and to prove that having a country is racist. And it's very hateful toward people that aren't already inside the country. And this is actively happening in America, UK and the UK and Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, all these places, and any place with even a memory of any amount of individual freedom. And to get rid of sovereign countries, there's this brilliant plan that the UN is now implementing, along with NGOs that are connected to the UN. And they're funding an invasion of all these sovereign countries to tear apart societies and economies and cause violence and chaos to the greatest degree they can, for the simple reason that if they tear apart any stability in these various countries, then world government is going to look like the only hope and the only solution. And world government is tyranny, getting the world ready for extermination. So they're telling us also that compromised government officials in these countries that are controlled by bribes and blackmail. I always say bribes and blackmail, but it's bribes and blackmail. That their countries can't be saved, and therefore we need the world government and the UN to oversee our salvation. And the people working for this in government that are really traitors to their own country all over the world, they believe that they'll be rewarded in the global tyranny that's coming. And many of them do believe that, as the Georgia Guidestones say, that it's not extermination, it's just population reduction that's going to happen. And that if they serve their masters well in this malice that's being rolled out in so many forms, that they'll be rewarded and have great positions in the remnant in the government that's going to inherit the earth as their playground. And they don't realize that when their function is over, the program calls for them to be eliminated. But that's what it is. And so anybody that's listening to us right now from within the power structure that thinks that you're going to be rewarded by going along with this, it's not going to work out that way. You might want to rethink your position in the whole thing. Because I'm not against any of you. I just want you to wake up and start doing the opposite of what you've done up to now, which is possible, because under all the programming that you've been brainwashed with to become a person who's devoted to evil and high on the drug of evil, which the Satanists are, underneath is still a real human being, even though many people don't believe that anymore. They think it's a separate kind of being that is evil and not human. Possession is real, and in that sense that could be true, but the one that's being possessed is also still there and could wake up again and could defect from the harm that they're doing. So I'm suggesting that you look at that. And anyway, there's so many things that they're telling us to believe. And as I mentioned before, Elon Musk is involved in one of the latest enhancements to the new AI program to change humanity, similar to the Matrix. And you know that he's the one who's got the company SpaceX that is intending to really help us and make things a lot more convenient by radiating the whole surface of the Earth on every square inch. He has a lot of companies, but one of his latest ones that's being talked about is at least as dangerous as 5G, at least as harmful as SpaceX, and it's making brain chips. It's called Neuralink. Sounds like something like a sci-fi movie company or something like that, Cyberdyne Systems or that sort of thing from the Terminator. Anyway, what does Neuralink do? What we know of that they do is they make chips to actually put inside your brain. And it reminds me of the joke in Ghostbusters where they said, well, the system just needs a sample of your brain tissue now to do this research. And Lewis said, well, okay, I guess that's all right. But that was a funny joke in Ghostbusters. It's not as funny of a joke now because Neuralink's already producing brain chips in the real life sci-fi movie that we're in at the moment. And those are being used by the military already, and I'm sure they're working on prisoners and on hospital patients, but the idea is to get them into all of the population. And whereas Elon Musk warned before in a more coherent way that not brain chips, but AI in general is the most immediate threat to the future of mankind, not in a sexist way, man and woman, humankind. He's changed his opinion. Something happened, and he was on video this week looking like a zombie, kind of unexpressive, saying, yes, it's going to have all of these benefits. And then he talked about it, and it's been shown that it's a small incision in the back, in the soft part right at the base of your skull, and very quick. And in fact, the idea is that they can have fantastic business success by putting kiosks in malls, so that, you know, there's places in the malls where you can go in and get your ears pierced and different things like that. He wants to make it as casual like that, and is expecting that the first ones to fall for it will be the kids, and their parents will let them do it if they don't understand what's going on. And there's a little incision that's made in the back of the neck, right immediately under your skull. And the chips with wires go in there, and the wires, to sound nicer, are called threads. And that's coming right up in the next year or so. And even though he had warned about AI as being the biggest threat, now he's working to implant it in your brain. So he may have had a change of heart or gotten a kind of threat offer that he couldn't refuse. I don't know. But this is going to work in harmony with the 5G system, like the Matrix and the smart grid. I don't know where it's going to go, but Elon Musk looked really strange and changed when he gave the talk promoting all the benefits of the brain chips. So hopefully that can be stopped, but right now it's planned to go straight ahead. And at the same time, it's hard when you're talking about all these things, it's hard to realize which one is the biggest threat to life, because I think all of them are essential threats, and they're all work together. So they're like links in a chain. And the one that I'm about to bring up now in the couple minutes that we have left is that Google, you heard of Google, right? It's a company that said "Don't be evil" as their slogan, and it had all these cute, different colored, different style letters in their logo. And a logo like that, how could the company ever be anything but really nice? And that was the idea, of course. And they're working with the other big tech companies. See, Google is a search engine that, in my opinion, it's not intelligent to ever use it. Look at DuckDuckGo if you don't know about it. It's a kind of a dumb name, but it's the best one I've found. Duck like the bird duck, DuckDuckGo.com, and you can get onto it and download it really easy. But Google and big tech are preparing to completely steal the 2020 US election. There's no question about it. And probably they're working all over the world to control and steal other elections. So there was a guy on Alex's show this week, and his name was Dr. Robert Epstein. He pronounces it Epstein. And he gave a presentation in the Senate hearing, very poorly attended. There were only a few people that even cared to come into it, but Ted Cruz was there, and he was questioning Dr. Epstein about what are you saying, Dr. Epstein? See, most of these people in Congress are so out of it about anything about high tech or internet things or anything like that. He was saying, Dr. Epstein, are you saying that Google and all these other companies could collect and spend potentially billions of dollars together, and that they could then promote one party? They happen to be promoting the Democrat Party over the Republicans, although both are totally corrupt in my opinion. But they're promoting everything about the Democrat Party and a satanic agenda right now. And so Ted Cruz was asking Dr. Epstein, do you mean they could spend a lot of money and compromise the election? And Dr. Epstein said, no, with respect, I want to correct you, Senator. If the head of Google wants to steal the 2020 election, all he has to do is send out a go vote notice, a reminder, only to Democrats. And they could change 2 to 10 million votes without saying a word and without spending a dime. They don't have to raise billions of dollars. They just arrange a phone call, and that's the end of it. So, that also brings up the question, we don't have time to really go into it in detail, but why are the big tech and the media companies favoring Democrats so much instead of any other party? And it's because appears to be because the communist tyranny, which is the goal of the Democrat Party right now, clearly that's their goal. Hate the current president, that's a big plank in their platform, but overall bring in socialism, and a lot of the things they're doing are beyond that, beyond communist and going fully into satanic direction to destroy society. But the Republicans aren't any good either. It's just that they're not as aggressively evil as the Democrats are at the moment. So neither one is very good, but the Democrats are intended to win the 2020 election, and according to Dr. Epstein, that is what's going to happen. Basically, there's only, a very short time between now and the 2020 election in November. And there's no time to waste. If Google is not going to become the worldwide power to control elections, change has to happen immediately. And it could. There have been some good suggestions for strategies of suddenly blocking the tech companies, including breaking them up, but also other technical things that would happen much faster. In the meantime, though, the tech companies seem very confident that the current government's not going to do anything to address this in time. So they're promoting anything that can tear apart the fabric of society, including gender confusion and child abuse, and I mean massive child abuse, where they decide that a boy should be turned into a girl and get him so confused that he wants to do that, and they give him toxic chemicals to destroy his normal development, or vice versa with a girl. They can do the same thing. They're promoting abortion both before and after birth, trying to take your attention off the fact that it's a baby, and they're saying, along with ethics, bioethicists panels. One meeting a few years ago in Australia, these are advanced scientists. They say that, well, actually, scientifically speaking, a human is not a human until after 3 years old, but some disagree and say, well, it may never be a human. We should have abortion after birth as old as you want. And the legal people I've talked to say that in New York, that's already the law on the new provision, is that there's no age limit. So it's just the woman's body, as everybody knows. Completely ridiculous thought. The party's pushing hatred of America, lies about the border crisis, which is intense, and lies about the current president, lies about basically everything. Total focus on racism and victimhood. I had an experience with that this week. I was talking to an academic group that was a minority male forum and asking them, you know, what do you guys do, and how are you helping people who are the minorities, by the way? And they say, well, it's got to be a big enough minority to be recognized, otherwise you're not a minority and you can't join. We'll discriminate against you on the basis of race and only take these certain people. So they're pushing a minority victim and mentality to be taken advantage of. I guess one of the last things that I have time to mention, since we're almost done here, is total support of a religion of mass death that I can't mention here or we'll be off the air right away. Starts with the letter I, and it has billions of followers, and it promotes murder, slavery, invasion, lying, rape, subjugation of women, terrorism, burning cars, no-go zones, all kinds of horrible things. And it's also known as the religion of peace, which is not a very good joke. And the Democratic Party has been tasked with covering up all the crimes that this particular group does. And I want to make it clear, the people that belong to this religion or were born into it, a lot of them are wonderful people. And I am not against anybody of any religion at all. I mean, even a little bit. But it's what's said in the religion itself that is horrible. And other religions have gone in this direction before. This is just the only one that is doing it on a mass scale right now. And it's being covered up for by the Democratic Party. So that's one reason that the power structure wants to use them as a channel. While the right and the left, and we'll talk about this next time maybe, they waste their time fighting over tunnel vision, and the right can't see the real environmental crises that are emergencies now, and the left can't see so many things, the importance of sovereign countries and freedoms and things like that. So the antidote for all this is in your hands, not any big group, not any fancy political leader or anything like that. You have to be willing to do the work to drop the blinders and look for what's true instead of what your party politics say. Drop all the labels and drop right and left and all that kind of nonsense. There aren't really any partisan issues at all. And besides, the point of power to heal everything that's going on in the world is inside you. That's why you're so important. And if you think you're not an incredibly important person, 1 out of billions and insignificant, you're making a critical error. And that error is being supported and perpetuated by the power structure. And you need to get beyond that, then you can make a contribution and really have a hand in improving the future of humanity and all the life forms on this planet. Get your health back, learn the forbidden information of how to do that, and which really is forbidden now. We'll talk more about that too. And learn everything that you can and be an example, because even if you just say nothing, if you become a strong enough example, it affects other people subliminally. And even ones that would argue with you and not listen will be deeply affected. You have this massive ability. So watch our videos during the week. We're still doing those. Watch the Sunday guest shows. If we disappear and get banned, keep up with us at brighteon.com and lostartsradio.com. And if you want to support going further in uncovering the spectacular being that you are, and you're willing to go to some effort to do that and learn how to transform your life, check out planetaryhealingclub.com. And I really appreciate your being with us. Sorry I'm a couple minutes over. Have a great week, and we will look forward to seeing you next time. See you then.